You're listening to the all-new CultureCast, Chicagoland's finest podcast.
I am the Gorehound.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Thor / Dan / whatever you want to call me.
And we are the all-new CultureCast, presenting best of 2016, what we really liked in 2016, and yeah. How are you guys doing today?
Woo.
Good.
Doing great. It is the end of 2016. I hope that makes our celebrities safe. I was listening to a podcast today. I think it was NPR Politics podcast.
Always a classic.
What?
Always a classic.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I was listening, and they said that somebody had done a study. Now, I don't have the study. I was just listening to a podcast that talked about the study. But they did say more celebrities died in 2016 than they do in the average year. So it's not just our imagination. There have literally been more dead celebrities.
Yeah, like every 2 months somebody's gone.
And like big names too. Like big names. Not just Abe Vigoda, though that was this year.
Who?
Abe Vigoda was a very old man that was in the Godfather, and since some ridiculous date, like since the early days of the internet, there's been a website called Is Abe Vigoda Dead?
Oh,
and
God.
you go to it and it says yes, because he's always looked like 10,000 years old. They actually, he used to, like, he thought it was funny. Like, he used to always appear on Conan, and that was the gag, was, like, checking in on Abe Vigoda to see if he's dead.
Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah, the Graveyard Queen really likes Conan. I think I remember seeing that on there.
Yeah. That was early days of Conan, like, to the extent where I guess he would also just show up as, like, a guest star if, like, no one else, because they'd always have him around just to do bits, and then if, like, a guest canceled, he'd just come, like, you know, be like, hey, remember you were in The Godfather? And he'd be like, yep.
I always get a little annoyed when you see more of celebrities just because they're promoting something, when it's like, I know you're not doing anything right now. Why can't you be charming on TV?
All right. So
we are missing Nick today because he's feeling a little tired, and
This is a ass punk.
so we wish him the happiest nap on this Thursday evening.
Dun dun dun! Man crush of the week.
No, we don't need that.
That's staying. In light of the recent release of Rogue One, this is going to be a twofer. Donnie Yen and Mads Mikkelsen are the man crushes of the week.
Good one.
Donnie Yen stars as Ip Man in like one of my favorite kung fu series, and I'm not sure if I've mentioned it in the podcast before, but like Ip Man series I love, and I'm always like bawling at the end because the story of Ip Man is so intense, and Donnie brings it out so much, and it's just, he's such a sweetheart, but he's also so intense. Like in the first Ip Man, I think he gets hit like once until the very end, and it's not even because like they're trying to build him up to be like a god, but I honestly think he's just that good. And Mads Mikkelsen, because even though I maybe it's because Rogue One just came out, and that's why I've been thinking about. But when he is in Valhalla Rising, he is just so intense. I love it.
Yeah, I heard that's good. I've been meaning to watch that. Thank you for reminding me about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I like the your man crushes of the week. See, when you said it was going to be two people and it was going to be Rogue One, I assumed it was going to be Donnie Yen and then what's his name, Baze.
Oh yeah.
After who plays him, yeah, those two were so great together. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But
without further ado, let's get into the best of 2016. Jen, do you want to start us off with, in no particular order, because I find that would be very difficult, what was one of your favorite movies this year?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go with a lot of critics and say I really liked Moonlight.
Okay.
So Moonlight is the story of a young black boy growing up in Miami during the the kind of the drug era of the 90s. He is hold on, let me look up who the director is. I should have written that down. I don't know. I listened to a interview with him on another NPR podcast called Code Switch, and he was really cool.
Is this the guy from the Luke Cage movie?
No, Barry Jenkins.
Okay.
Yeah, so the director is named Barry Jenkins. I don't think he's doing the wait, Black Panther? What'd you say?
Luke Cage, Netflix series. The villain.
I don't know who is doing Luke Cage. Although I will say, Thor and I did start watching that. We only got 2 episodes in, but it was really good, and we do intend to finish it at some point before 2018. So
yeah, I really like that series.
no, but so Moonlight, about a young queer kid growing up in Miami. Really good, really, really good.
Looks like a true story, or is it?
Yeah,
just...
it's based on a play that's sort of based on the original playwrights. Like a lot of it's based on his childhood, and then the two of them kind of work together. I know he was talking about how both of them had mothers who were drug addicts, so a lot of that was kind of composited between the two of them in terms of the mother character. But one of the things that I thought made it not only a really good movie, but a really interesting movie just from a storytelling perspective is it was not very dialogue heavy. And I tend to like a lot of dialogue in my movies.
Yeah.
This was something where there was not a lot of talking at all.
Mm.
And I really admire when people do kind of different things with their movies. It was really interesting to see how much you can tell in a story when you've got a character who kind of keeps everything internal. You get a lot of characters who kind of go on screen, announce their motivation, announce what their plans are, kind of.
Yeah. Have you seen Valhalla Rising with Mads Mikkelsen?
No, definitely
That's
not.
from the guy who directed Drive, right?
I don't know. He directed something else recently. But that movie honestly has like 3 paragraphs of script. And it is so intense.
Sorry for the background noise there. Our normally very quiet dog decided to come over to the microphone just to shake.
Yeah. All right. That's all right. But yeah, if you get a chance, you should.
Nicholas Winding Refn is the guy that directed that and Drive and Only God Forgives.
Right.
And that new Neon Demon one, yeah.
Okay, well, none of that can be a real name. That's too much.
Oh, yeah, the Neon Demon. That's what I was thinking of because I just watched that.
Or as the Flophouse podcast calls him, Nicholas Wingdings Refn. So how not to get distracted? That did technically come out this year, right? Neon Demon.
Yeah, Neon Demon, and that was actually a lot of people's on their top 10 greatest movies of the year.
But it was also on a lot of top 5 worst that I saw.
Yeah, I saw it, and it was way too weird for me. I
love weird things.
Yeah, but this was. I don't really like the fashion industry. It was too much for me.
Yeah, no, I heard it was very pretentious. I'm about 20 minutes into it. It's got no forward momentum. I like the performances in it a lot. I love that actress from Donnie Darko who's in it. I forget her name. She was Rocket.
Jenna Malone, yeah.
Jenna Malone, yeah, she's great. She's a pretty solid musician too. She has that little indie project that her and her friend do that has got some sick tunes in it. But yeah. So that's always cool to see her and stuff. But definitely,
I watched. Yeah, I picked it out because it had Keanu Reeves in it. Really, the only reason I knew he didn't have a big role, but I was like, I was in a Keanu Reeves kick.
Well, wait, you see, so yeah, I'm 20 minutes into it, and there's been no mention. Is he?
It's a real small role.
Yeah.
But
he shows up. He shows up and orders a drink at the bar and mentions that someone just killed his dog. It's actually like a between-cool for John Wick.
All right, I'm sorry, Jen, for distracting you.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
That was my fault too.
No, but I think I kind of said what I wanted to on the movie. It's really cool, really different. People should go see it. Support.
Is it depressing?
People.
Does it end on a happy note?
I would say yes. I would say it ends on a note of human connection, which is really good because a lot of the movie is kind of about this kid closing himself off to human connection. And so the movie definitely ends on a hopeful note. I mean, I wouldn't even say there's definitely a lot of kind of sad things that happen to him, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a movie I was crying during. Yeah. And I cry very easily at movies.
Yeah, same here.
So, I wouldn't say I was crying, but I would say, I
Yeah.
definitely felt the journey, like I would definitely recommend it. The other thing that was kind of cool about it from a storytelling perspective is you see the character at 3 different ages. So once when he's, 10 or so, once when he's a teenager in high school, and then once when he's like 26. And he's played by 3 different actors. And I wouldn't say they all, they don't all look alike, but they all definitely project a lot of the same traits. So
Yeah.
I think it works. So anyway, it's really interesting. It's kind of a little bit more experimental filmmaking, and it's also really interesting just because it kind of covers a, queer black boy, which is not a topic you see a ton of in mainstream media. So I think, everyone should go see this and tell me if you cry or not.
That's pretty much a guarantee for me.
Okay, good. Good.
All right, I will jump in. One of my favorite was Arrival.
I also loved Arrival.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, it was... Well, I heard a lot of good things going into it, and I left thinking all those good things about it. And just as time has gone on, my opinion of it has only increased. But it's as a sci-fi movie, it's got like a whole lot of great concepts that are pretty plausible, and I like to think, like, what if this actually happened? And yeah, it's crazy.
I think you get a lot of narratives where, some alien comes and they've already studied English and they already, they just come in and they can start talking to you. So it was, maybe this is a normal sci-fi trope and I'm just not aware. I can't recall a movie where, there was really an emphasis on how difficult it would be to communicate with this other group.
Yeah. Yeah, and to plug
to
plug another podcast is The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Oh, I used to listen to them back in the day.
Oh yeah, I listen to them quite regularly. And the latest one, they did a movie review, and I was like, nice, because they don't usually do movie reviews, and I'm like, that's pretty much all I listen to is like cinema podcast. But yeah, they did one, and they like thought about whether these ideas that were happening there were actually plausible, and yeah, they loved it too. But the story behind it goes so deep, and it intertwines with itself because you're seeing, spoiler alert, the future.
Perfect.
And yeah, because it keeps you thinking like throughout the movie, and it's not a very passive movie. You have to be thinking about like what's actually happening, but it really leads you along, and so it's not that difficult to really catch on the drift. Because by the end of it, they're really hammering in on what happens.
Right.
And so I could see like a 9-year-old being like a little lost in it. But I think for the majority of the viewers, it really hits hard as to the point that they're trying to get across.
I'm going to say a 9-year-old would be
What's it?
bored as well.
Yeah.
I just think a 9-year-old would be bored. Yeah. Maybe I'm
Probably.
wrong, but if I were a 9-year-old watching this, I would be like, this is not enough.
I haven't seen it, but I think that's about the age. No, I was probably like 11 when I saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So yeah, you're right, probably a little young. But like, I think it sort of depends too. I mean, I feel like there's definitely middle schoolers that are into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, and let me just say, I was a smart kid. Also, 9-year-olds are not in middle school, but. I want the listeners to know I was a smart kid. Yeah. I was in the gifted program.
Oh man!
So
congratulations.
You're right. Not to brag about my accomplishments when I was 8, but I tested well. But no, I thought that was definitely, and it was very refreshing. I think with Arrival.
I'm sure the listeners are so glad to hear about you pimping your 8-year-old self to them.
I would not call that pimping. I'm not. No, but anyway, no. I thought it was really refreshing too, because I think it's so easy this time of year, or just in this season of movies, to see a lot of remakes or retreads.
Yeah, this is very original. You
don't.
You have not seen this idea before.
Right. It's an original story. It's nobody's a Avenger. Well, I mean, I guess one of them is
Hawkeye.
In the movie. Like it's not based on an existing, comic book or web series or, right. God only knows. Like, so it was really cool because I don't feel like we're seeing a ton of original movies aimed at adults anymore. So anytime you've got something like that,
Yeah, and it keeps you thinking as you left the theater, because when I left, I found it to be a very happy ending, but the Graveyard Queen was like, that was so depressing.
Oh.
Because it
without giving anything away, I think I'm much more on your end of the spectrum.
Like, I understand why Amy Adams did what she did, but I can also see the perspective of Jeremy Renner, and it's like, but I think, under my philosophy, I think that it was the right thing to do.
Oh, definitely. I think, you can't go through life only thinking about...
Yeah. Everything can't be perfect.
Right.
But you just have to appreciate each day as it goes on.
Absolutely.
There's our Mr. Rogers moment for the day.
Oh.
So I'm going to pop in with... I'm going to do these in order, because I think I'm up to the challenge of my favorite movies of the year.
All right.
So my absolute favorite movie of the year was The Witch, or stylized often as the Vitch.
Yeah, interesting.
This absolutely blew me away. I need to watch it again because it came out pretty early in the year.
Yeah, but, March or something.
I think that's one of the things. Like that's what I went through and looked at. What was it like? Google just has their it's some kind of aggregate that they're using where they list like 50 movies that have a lot of both combo of box office and buzz.
Yeah.
So that I was just looking through that to remind myself of what had come out earlier in the year. And yeah, if you haven't seen this, I don't want to give anything away because I knew nothing about it going into it, and I think it's basically the hook is they use all authentic language to what does it take place in the 1600s?
It was like 1650 or something.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's about this Puritan who says that like the Puritans have like lost what they were supposed to do, so he's forming like his own little sect that's just him and his family, and he goes
that's inaccurate. They kick him out, so he is a Puritan who gets kicked out of like Puritan community.
Well, because he won't stop teaching his version of Puritanism.
Sure.
So then he moves, they say like, well, stop it, and then he gives this speech about how like we came to this country to practice our religion without being persecuted,
right.
And so
I didn't catch, because I saw this, I didn't catch that was why he left, but I didn't really see it as that important. I felt like the main point was like he's on his own, he doesn't have anybody to help him on this, and this is his life mission to raise his family according to whatever he is preaching.
Yeah, that was, since that's literally the first scene, that was I wanted to
set the stage.
Yeah.
Wanted to set the stage without giving anything. Was I think honestly, like if you think that as a setup and then creepy stuff starts happening, because I think that's what's cool about the movie is that for a lot of the movie you don't know whether there's anything supernatural or whether it's just creepy stuff, and there may be you see early on that there is at least one other person in the forest, so they could just be pulling some shit. And I think that's what makes the movie great, is the whole time you're just kind of being like, well, is everyone just paranoid, or is there actually shit going down, or is it just this one lady messing with them? And I like cannot recommend that movie enough.
As soon as that the goat spoke.
Oh, yes. Oh, what's his name? It's a great name. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Black Billy or something.
Yeah.
But no, I was gonna say, I think one of the things. So I listened to a podcast. I will not remember. Maybe it was Film Spotting, Chicago podcast. But they were talking about how the director is like
Black Phillip.
Yes.
Phillip.
Yes.
So anyway, they talked about how the director had done like not just his homework, but had written the script based on old diaries. He had. He'd like hired some thatch roof maker from England to come make the thatch roof that would be, that's not the focus of the movie, but like that's how accurate he was.
Yeah.
And
the costumes and the sets were just like so cool.
Phenomenal.
Looking. And then he filmed the movie. Were you about to talk about that?
No, I don't care about that.
He filmed the movie in an aspect ratio that I don't think has been in theaters in something like 80 years. Because he kept doing the shots of those trees and he wanted to show how isolated they were. So he tried shooting it, in the typical widescreen, the size that movie screens are. And then he tried shooting it in that 2.35 to 1 that you often see movie screens in. And he ended up shooting it in what's like somewhere in between like movie ratio and television ratio, which is obviously. Jen is pointing out that you can tell I have ice in my mouth.
Right.
That's all right.
So what I was going to say was that I think one of the things I just loved about it was like how, like, you don't consider, because we always have lights, right? Even if the lights are off, there's a light outside, there's a light across the way, the neighbor's lights are on, your car light is on, you know, there's always lights somewhere. And I think one of the things the movie did so well was like not only getting how isolated they were, but how dark the world was.
Yeah.
You know, before you could, you know, you couldn't really afford to have candles going 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, once the sun went down, you were just stumbling around, and, you know, it really makes sense that they would be more paranoid about that kind of thing in a world where you can't just turn on the lights to make the scary thing go away.
Yeah,
and the only sense of security that they have is their religious beliefs. They have
Right.
nothing to like keep them afloat besides that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that movie was awesome.
That movie was amazing.
I'm sorry that I was talking with ice in my mouth.
But yeah, I saw this and it didn't make my top list for the year because as great as it was, it just, I don't know if I was watching it on a bad weekend, but I know that I watched it with The Forest. I kind of got The Witch and The Forest together. And The Forest like really let me down.
Yeah.
And so I might have had a little bit from that. But yeah, I find that this movie was like fantastically made. But yeah, it didn't ring the bells that I was looking for at the time that I watched it.
And I think that's a thing with horror, is that no matter how well made it is, if it's not getting you involved in it, because horror is so much about the atmosphere versus, you know, like other movies where it's about the characters. Like I feel like horror and comedy are definitely the ones that you're going to have the most like visceral reactions to. So if it's not doing it for you, it's not doing it for you, you know?
All right. Have you guys seen Rams?
Nope.
Have you heard of it?
No, I hadn't. I saw this on your list and I've never heard of this thing. I want to look it up.
I watched this movie on a completely random pick. It was like I saw goats, it looked weird, and I watched it. And it was so good. I'll give you basically the premise that I remember. But basically there are two brothers, and this is takes place in, I believe, Iceland. Yeah, Iceland. Takes place in Iceland. It's two brothers. They don't talk to each other, but they live right next door to each other. And they kind of compete in these contests, very local contests about who has the best ram. And it's a very sense of ego. And one of them like accuses the other brother of having diseased goats. And so they basically, spoilers, they basically have to kill off all the rams so that nobody else's rams get diseased. And it shows like the local community, like how much this affects everybody because it's local community. If one of the rams are diseased, all of them are diseased. And so it's going about how the two brothers are fighting and they basically like hate each other and they try to kill each other, and one of them like tries to save their goats. It's very intense, and it takes the atmosphere and the scenery is beautiful. And for some reason, it just like hit all the notes. It is a foreign film, so it is subtitled, but I did not feel like it distracted me from it in any way.
Mm-hmm. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I know the Graveyard Queen did not really get into it. She ended up falling asleep to it because it is pretty slow, but it delivers. So.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of foreign films tend to move, you know, are not as attuned to our, you know, need for constant stimulation. So.
Rams was apparently the 36th best reviewed movie of the year according to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, and these movies from this region always seem to hit it. Like there's Rare Exports, which I think is from maybe Iceland or Norway or something like that. And that is so awesome. And it kind of has that same feel for it, where it's basically like, you know, living off of a single industry, small local community, like trying to like overcome, you know, some dilemma.
Have you ever seen HUD with Paul Newman?
HUD?
Yeah, I saw that relatively recently for the first time, and that's the plot of that one is
housing and urban development.
Yeah, it's about how Keith or Sutherland's in charge of housing and urban development, and then everyone else in the government's killed, so he's got to take over.
You talk about that TV show so much, and I know you haven't seen it.
No, it sounds like something that I want someone else to watch and tell me about.
Well, it doesn't look like HUD takes place in Iceland, but I will give it a shot.
Well, no, it's not. It's a very acclaimed, bleak Paul Newman movie.
Not everything can take place in Iceland, dude.
But the main crux of it is his dad. HUD's the sort of like no good son of the this dad who owns a ranch, and they discover that their cows might have whatever it is, brucellosis, whatever the one is that can affect the whole herd, and that can affect all the herds, and you gotta kill them all. So it's sort of like HUD's trying to tell the dad, well, let's just sell the cows, and the dad's like, no, we gotta go see the government and do it the right way. And it's sort of this this clash between like this very like money driven kid, and then a dad that wants to do what's best for the whole community.
Paul Newman is HUD.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically, it's interesting because it's all very stark black and white cinematography. I think it's one of the last black and white movies to win best cinematography. And it's
I'm not sure. What about the artist?
Best cinematography?
I think they won best cinematography.
Okay, so one of the last ones when they still made movies in black and white, not as a gimmick.
Fair enough.
Because Schindler's List probably won it too, because that movie won everything. But so, yeah, it's just when you reminded me of the plot of this, because this is super fucking bleak, but it's sort of interesting because it's kind of, it's Paul Newman at his best, where he doesn't really learn anything over the course of the movie. It's more about how he affects everyone around him. So just when you were talking about that, about two brothers fighting, about this tension between whether it's better for the town to have not found this out, that just reminded me of that. Which, like I said, not to
sounds very similar.
Not completely sidetrack us. It just reminded me of it, and I saw that for the first time maybe just 2 years ago.
Yeah, cool.
So let's go over Jen. What's the next
Jen next up?
Okay, I have 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Ooh, good one.
Interesting pick, because I know that a lot of people like this one, but people were also very split on this, and so I could imagine you saying, well, the first half of the movie was my favorite movie of the year, but the second one wasn't.
I will say, okay, so I'm going to add the caveat that I think the movie should have ended 15 minutes before it did.
Yeah.
But I think the movie before that was so good that I was willing to forgive those last 10 minutes when they suddenly remembered it had to be a Cloverfield movie, as opposed to But before that, it was basically like a living room drama. Essentially, it's a group of characters who are trapped in a space. And they're kind of agitating against each other. And I feel like we just don't see enough, I said, before the end of the movie where it turned into, sort of a little bit more of a sci-fi whatever.
And I think was, to spoil it, it's such a joke because when she gets out there and it turns out there were, so the whole movie you're like, well, is John Goodman just a, creepy person keeping a woman in his basement, or are there really monsters out there? And then you discover that yes, there are monsters out there, but John Goodman's also a creepy person that has kept multiple women in his bomb shelter dungeon. So I love that when she finally gets out there, but they have the and then she takes off the gas mask because she's like, oh, he was just gaslighting me, this wasn't weren't any monsters out there. And then the fucking spaceship is just in the background, and she just goes, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That would have been the perfect ending. Just cut it off right there. We don't need the whole action sequence with the spaceship.
Right. But so to get back to the part that I liked, which was the part where you're in this basement. There's 3 people. They're sort of trapped there. One of the characters, is controlling everybody else's movements. It's a really interesting drama. I think John Goodman was amazing. I don't think he'll get any sort of critical acknowledgement of that, which I think is too bad because
if it didn't have the sci-fi element, he
probably would have, right?
Yeah.
Because
and not that would have made it a better movie, just that critics are so against giving anything with any I guess fantasy edge or sci-fi edge,
Yeah, but I thought the rest of the movie is definitely, I think, worth anybody checking out, and I think it's a worthwhile hour and a half of your life to check it out.
Yeah, these closed environment movies where it's just a limited number of characters just stuck in this a few rooms are always just so interesting because it allows you to focus on the story and their interactions between each other. And it's so great. So one of my favorites. There's a whole bunch of movies on Netflix where it's basically like 5 people stuck in a room, and they have to like figure out why they're there and how they get out and like what's the twist.
Right. I mean, one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone, which I feel like all kids go through like a Twilight Zone phase.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite episodes was always 5 characters in search of an exit, where you've got these 5. You've got like a clown and a soldier and a ballerina, and I can't remember what the other 2 are, and they wake up in this room and they don't know why they're there, and twist, spoiler for a 50-year-old episode. It turns out they're all dolls that have been thrown in a children's charity bin around Christmas time. And that style of, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think, you either like The Twilight Zone or you don't, and I always did. So, like, that was the kind of thing where I would watch, and I'd be like, whoa, mind blown, crazy, and so I've, I do enjoy that, like, as a genre, if that is a genre.
It's not really a genre, it's just like a similar plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know with TV they call it a bottle episode, when they just use like an existing set to, save money basically and think of a reason to have everyone get trapped. But yeah, I don't think there is a term for it. Or if there is, I'm not familiar with it for movies. And yeah, it definitely is what's that one? I still haven't seen it, but I read about it for years. I don't know why I never bothered to see it. No, Cube I love. And it's fantastic. And the other one, what's it called? Ferment's Room, about like the room that's like slowly collapsing on itself, and they have to solve it's these like 5 mathematicians that have to solve some kind of I think they got pretty mixed reviews, but like it's definitely a really fun conceit, and I've managed to keep from getting spoiled out of it, probably because no one on earth has seen it, so I haven't meant to watch it. Devil by
M. Night Shyamalan was one of the more popular ones that came out.
Did you enjoy that? I never saw it.
It was okay. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was, M. Night Shyamalan and a closed environment movie and, pretty big production. So I enjoyed it. I mean, it was just a 3 out of 5. Nothing to write home about.
As good as The Force Awakens, says Kyle. I mean, Gorehound, sorry.
Yeah, as good as Rogue One.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. I'm getting my Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
You want me to pop up with my
Let's hear it.
So my second favorite movie, which I was shocked was not one of the 100 best reviewed movies this year because it's fantastic, is The Meddler, which I guess was not a huge release. So that might be why it's not on Rotten's list. It might just not have gotten enough critical reviews because this is a movie that, based on the title and based on, I remember reading a review from RogerEbert.com that just said this movie is, goddamn fantastic. Be sure to watch it, which I took to mean this movie is very heavy. And I was like, oh no, like I was worried it was going to be very like this like somber story about a mom and her kid. And
it does have Susan Sarandon in it.
Yeah, and instead it is hilarious. Like it's still like a very profound, like like Susan Sarandon sort of learning important life lessons after her husband's death, and like learning to sort of stop feeling guilty about the fact that she's well off now because of like her husband's insurance policy, and she still gets his pension and all this stuff. And like, but overall, she also learns that like it's kind of okay to just like do goofy stuff now that she's retired, which I kind of like this idea. Like she just pays for what's the name of that awesome actress from Saturday Night Live? She was so good in this. Actually, I think this is my favorite thing I've seen her in. From
the one
who used to host Weekend Update.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cece.
Yeah.
Cecily Strong.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So she just is like talking to Cecily Strong, who like is a friend of her daughter's, but she's met like once, and they're talking about how like her and her girlfriend are just gonna go like do a courthouse marriage because they really, if they're gonna do a wedding, they want to do it upright, but they don't have the money to do it. So they're like, well, we don't want to like have not a dream wedding. And then Susan Sarandon's like, why don't I just pay for your guys' wedding? It's gonna be awesome, and like just like stuff like that. It's like, and then her psychiatrist calls her on, and she's like, I think you feel guilty about all the money you inherited, so you're trying to take on these projects. And she goes, what's the name of the woman whose wedding you're paying for? And she's like, Diane. And she's like, what's her last name? And she's like, well, that's not fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't
it's very
seen.
cute. And then
I haven't seen this yet, but it's got Rose Byrne in it, and I always approve of that because she is one of my legit crushes.
Yeah. She has a very tough role too, because I feel like she's probably only in like a third of the movie, and you totally understand why her mom's driving her insane. But then you also you get why they still love each other. Like I feel like Rose Byrne does an excellent job of coming across as like sort of rightfully exasperated, but without making you ever think that like she's being unfair, or without. Even though your sympathy is going to lie with Susan because she's just like the most like charming person ever. And the way I'm referring to it makes it sound a lot tweer than it is. Like it's a very realistic movie, and it's just all of the humor is just based on the way people talk to each other, and not like comedies of just I guess manners, for lack of a better term, like people just people having interactions that are humorous. And she has a great relationship with J.K. Simmons in it, who unfortunately only ends up being in about 3 scenes. But I think that's one of the things about this movie is it has a lot of different people she encounters, and all of it is her sort of learning something about life from them. But then also it reminded me a little bit of World's Fastest Indian minus the motorcycle racing, where it's like Anthony Hopkins just going along through his life and encountering these people and learning a little more about America, and they learn a little more about Anthony Hopkins' just really sort of cool set of values. So not the most plot heavy movie, but really great character interactions, and it does I think a great job of giving you satisfying endings for everyone without without doing any cop out. There's not, there's nothing that's too sad, but it's not like her, look at, I've totally, I have no problems ever again,
Yeah, no, it sort of reminded me, we also saw pretty soon after we saw that one, we did see, I lied. Before we saw that one, we saw, what was that one with Sally Field? It was called Hello, My Name is Doris. And that was another one where, it was an older actress getting to star in her own comedy that's, a little bit about, how her life sucks, but also, kind of lets her be funny and interesting. And I approve.
Yeah.
I definitely approve.
My Name is Doris doesn't make my list. Doris
I didn't say, but
yeah, Doris was super fun, but it was much more it's from some of the guys that did The State and Wet Hot American Summer. Or rather, one of the guys that did The State and Wet Hot American Summer, and I feel like it's a much more mature movie than those, but you do get a little bit more of that in there, where I felt like sometimes Sally Field's character was the butt of the joke,
Sure.
sometimes.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, which was realistic, because it's her sort of having a crush on this much older coworker and
much younger
coworker, played by.
If it was a much older coworker, he'd probably
the
be
guy
dead.
from the Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah, who's super
Schmidt from
funny.
New Girl.
Yeah, Schmidt.
Yeah. So it's
Max Greenfield.
Yeah,
I was I know
like-
he's got a real name.
No, his name is Schmidt.
To be fair, he's perfect as Schmidt.
Yeah, he'll never be anything other than Schmidt.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I haven't seen that show, but I really liked him in this. And, at times I felt like this one did, sort of take little more rom-com cliche ways out of things, So I would have only given this one a 4 out of 5, but still worth your time. And still, definitely a very undersea movie. Yeah, Meddler was, I'd say, my favorite comedy of the year, even though it was not necessarily fully a comedy. It was. It'll leave you with a good feeling throughout, and it also features Susan Sarandon, having to consume. She's doing one of her coworkers a favor and driving him to not even coworker. She's the guy who helps her fix her iPad at the Apple store. She drives to school after his shift's over, and his brother leaves some edibles in her car, and like the campus police like pulls up behind them, so she's like, oh shit, and like not that the campus police is ever gonna search this like 60-year-old woman's car, but she eats just like all the edibles at once. And there's this fantastic scene that like in any other movie you'd be like, oh my god, what if she gets Buster's away? But it's just Susan Sarandon having like the time of her life, just going to like sort of the like cheesy outdoor mall near her apartment and just like standing there staring at the fountains for like 2 hours being like, this is amazing.
Plus there's a scene of her with some chickens, so I like that. Her chicken.
Well, you have sold me. I will check it out as soon as I find it available.
Was that J.K. Simmons' chickens that he sings to?
Yes. He sings to the chickens.
Man, I forgot about that. This movie's great.
I had sort of forgotten about it, but no, it was a really fun, movie. And like I said, I mean, anytime you feature, older women letting them have their own comedy movie, I approve.
Yeah.
So saw the one, and then we saw the other, and I'm hoping there'll be more in 2017, but there probably won't be. So
my next one is Into the Forest. Not to be confused with The Forest, which is the stark difference.
Or to be confused with Into the Woods. Or to be confused with Into the Wild.
Right. I would have liked it if they had a different name that made it stand out a little bit more.
Okay, I don't know anything about this movie. Tell me about this movie.
I saw that Ellen Page was in it, so I was like, why not? And I know that she's usually a solid hit for me. And the plot was what really nailed it in because it was crazy. It's apocalyptic, but it starts from like normal life and progresses. Basically, there's a power outage where there's no more power whatsoever.
Oh my.
And so you see, Ellen Page, her sister, Evan Rachel Wood, and her dad basically just...
Oh, that's good casting.
Yeah, and they're basically just, living life, and power goes out, and they're like, well, all right, well, we'll be fine. It'll go back on tomorrow. And then it doesn't. And they're like, okay, it doesn't. And like a week later, they're like, all right, maybe we should like start stocking up on food and gas. And it just shows them like as it progresses about all of these luxuries that we take for granted. And it kind of shows them like 2 years on and just like how crazy it gets and, how awful people can be. And it's...
I believe it.
Oh man, I was just quite crying at the end. Very good.
I remember a friend of mine reading a book series, years ago. And I remember, the premise of the book series, which, I'm not going to remember the name of. But the premise was, what if, all electronics and, engines of any kind stopped working all of a sudden? And I don't remember how it all ends. But I do remember that at some point people start resorting to cannibalism, which I don't think is from the impression I got, it's not that they needed to do cannibalism because there was no way of eating. It was more like, okay, no one can stop us. Let's do the thing we always meant to do.
Yeah.
So I can definitely believe that people would get shitty after, some sort of crazy disaster like that, where they'd just be like, okay, well, it's not that I couldn't be a person. I think I'm going to just do what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be cannibalism.
Yeah, it's super intense. And it's also got a hint of survivalism in there about what they have to do to survive and get food and, keep themselves clean and whatnot.
All right, based on your watching of the movie, Gorehound, what would you say, how long would you live if you were in this situation?
If I was living where I am now, I don't think I would survive very long. They live out in kind of the forested area, and so that kind of benefits them and disadvantages them. But I don't think anybody would be able to survive in the suburbs. People are too awful, and people would just get even worse. And by being around more people, maybe this is showing a little pessimism in my lack of faith in humanity. But I don't think that anybody would survive in the suburbs. People would just go crazy. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't own enough guns to be in that scenario.
Yeah, we would just have to. I feel like if I was able to retreat into more nature and more of a natural environment, I think I would be a little bit better. I should mention that the dad was Keith Rennie, who also is in a series I'm watching, Man in the High Castle.
Oh, is that the one about Hitler?
It is.
Oh my God, is that good?
It's okay. The Queen likes it, but I'm not really getting into it. I was interested in it.
The Graveyard Queen or the Queen of England? Just to clarify.
The Graveyard Queen.
It is based on a book that I haven't read by one of my favorite authors, Philip K. Dick, right?
That's why I was really interested in it, because I've read most of Dick's works, and the story is good. I like the story, but the series is, I don't know. It doesn't hold the Dickian vibe.
Well, it did seem to lack. I mean, I know this isn't one of his funny novels, but I feel like everything, even Blade Runner, I mean, that was one of the cool parts about that movie, is as dark and as cool as it is, it definitely also captures the sort of humor in the dystopia, which I felt like was something he always brought to it. Was like, no matter how bleak things are, it's kind of like, gallows humor,
Yeah, and because I just finished the second season, and honestly, by the end of the second season, like, I forgot that, like, the Nazis were bad, because it's just like they're presented.
That's our tagline. Forgetting Nazis are bad. 2K17.
Because the story doesn't really make them look all that bad. They just look, very patriotic. You kind of lose why it would be bad if the Nazis won.
I mean, I feel like that's not. Yeah, I feel like that's a kind of an anti recommendation, just on a scale of these things.
It's different. Like, I mean, I guess I'd be okay. Well, one, yeah, I mean, in this current political climate, it's probably not good to do anything that's portraying Nazis sympathetically. But from okay, you can make a story about anything, I get that. But yeah, if you're a Deputy Man in High Castle, where the whole point was this allegory about the dangers of like normalizing fascism, it seems like that's what they're trying to do with this show, which would not be good. And like I said, I have not read Man in High Castle. Despite my love of Philip K. Dick, I think because it hits a little too close to home. Like, I like his stuff that's a little bit more about like the world getting destroyed by nuclear bombs and stuff.
Right, and robots and androids and stuff like that.
Yeah, because even the nuclear bomb stuff, it seems like, well, I don't really have any control over that, but like, white people, being terrible is definitely something that like we all need to work to, not to get too soapboxy, but we all need to work to prevent that as much as we can. So I'm kind of like, I think this book is just called The News right now. Myself do it. But yeah, no, that's I'm sorry to hear about that though, because you always want to see. We should wait until we get the anticipated ones. But speaking of Philip K. Dick, there's hopefully one that will be
much excited about.
Yeah. Should we just talk about that now, as long as we can transition?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so coming out next year, Gorehound, which I didn't realize this was already coming out next year. I'd seen the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer was just released like a week ago. And yeah, because I waited like 2 days because I didn't get a chance. But I was like, I'm not watching this on my phone. I'm not watching this at work. I am going to sit down on my computer, full screen it, because this is one of my favorite movies. I even have a tattoo of the unicorn.
Yes! That's
what
awesome.
What are we talking about?
Blade Runner?
Oh, I've never seen it.
You have not seen pretty much any Harrison Ford movie, as far as I can tell.
You know what? I'd say my life is good. I'd say I'm happy.
You don't understand. There's this movie where he plays an archaeologist. It's really good.
You're going to watch it within the next 3 months, because I honestly don't know how Nick is continuing to talk to you if you haven't seen Indiana Jones.
Well, maybe just don't let him listen to this episode, Just the version that he gets is just me saying he's a punk-ass punk again and again and again. And then he'll stop listening after 2 minutes, and then the rest of the episode can be us.
Hey, Jen, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
I don't care. I don't care about Star movies.
I'm literally trying to think of if you've seen any Harrison Ford movies, because you've never seen any Star Wars, you've never seen any Indiana Jones, you haven't seen Blade Runner.
Has he been in anything interesting?
I'll find a chick flick with him in it. Okay.
Okay.
Regarding Henry, you watch a movie about Harrison Ford playing a total asshole who gets like hit by a milk truck or something, and as he's coming out of his coma, discovers that he's a much nicer guy now that he's lacking intelligence.
Ender's Game. Have you seen Ender's Game?
No.
If I wanted to watch something anti-Semitic.
And who doesn't?
Yeah. Oh no, wait, my mistake. I shouldn't sell Orson Scott Card short. He's also deeply homophobic.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, Star Wars Holiday Special just came up in Harrison Ford filmography.
I've seen that twice.
Nice. I am impressed that you can sit through it.
I think both times the person I was watching with wanted to skip stuff, which I don't blame them. But the the worst segment to me is definitely the B. Arthur being in charge of the bar from the cantina from the beginning of the first movie, and she just ends up singing a lot.
Wait, I like B. Arthur.
I'm only 20 minutes in. I cannot get through it. I'm trying.
The cartoon's pretty cool. The cartoon in the middle is pretty cool. The rest of it's terrible. Okay. So getting back to Blade Runner, what is it, 2049?
Such a cool name too. It makes it retro because the comic book lines that had that name. I have high hopes for this.
Yeah, the trailer looked great, and Gosling can be hit or miss. But one thing I feel like he's never done is do some big commercial movie like this. I'm trying to think, I feel like even the stuff he's in that doesn't turn out well always has you can see why he did this because of this writer or because of this concept, So I think, if it had been some other, relatively popular actor, of his caliber, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe they're just doing it to hang out with Harrison Ford, or maybe they're just doing it because of Ridley Scott. But with Gosling, I'm hoping that it means that the script was actually fucking good.
Wait a second, guys. I would like to say I have seen a Harrison Ford movie. I saw Age of Adeline.
How was it?
So it was. She wore some beautiful clothing.
You think it'll be up for best costumes?
It came out last year, so I would say it's too late.
They might not notice.
I don't think I would ever watch this movie. It does not look anything up my alley.
Alright, I do believe that is the only Harrison Ford movie I've ever seen.
Actually, I don't even think that counts. Because this is not a Harrison Ford movie.
Yeah, unless if he doesn't hold a gun at some point.
Yeah, no cowboy hat. No.
Yeah. I mean, even if he'd said frantic or something, I would have been okay, well that works. That works. Yeah. Like Harrison Ford, I'm getting frantic. Like Sting, I'm tantric.
Why?
Right.
So that trailer for the new Blade Runner looks great. Ryan Gosling said Harrison Ford accidentally punched him in the face on set, and Harrison Ford's so grizzled and doesn't give a shit. Just Gosling was then a couple days later he comes by with a bottle of scotch, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's gonna give this to me to apologize. That's pretty cool. And Harrison Ford then pulls a glass out of his pocket, pours Ryan Gosling a dram of scotch, and then goes, sorry about punching you in the face, and then walks away to go drink this bottle of nice scotch himself in his own trailer. And Gosling's he goes, you can't even be mad. He's like, I got punched by Harrison Ford, and then he decided he didn't hit me hard enough that I got more than a sip of scotch from him.
You are so happy right now.
I hope that makes it into the movie, just that whole exchange.
Yeah. All right. Jen, you have two more?
Yes.
Dan, how many more do you have?
What? I'm just going along with you guys. Whatever you guys are done, I'm done.
Yeah, Jen, go.
All right, my last movie is
you
have
you have two more.
Right, but this is my last movie.
Okay.
The other one is a TV show.
Oh, switching it up.
Yeah, no, just to be different. So my last movie is La La Land, which I saw on Christmas Eve, with Thor over here.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're here. And I thought it was really cool. So
What a hunk this guy is. Man, he looks good in this.
Yeah.
He does, and
He
you know what?
He is not that good of a singer, unfortunately.
Right. I was going to talk about the movie.
I'm
right. So anyway, so he is a, it's basically this down on his luck jazz singer and a down on her luck wannabe actress, meet up and, have a sort of a meet cute, and then, but also have a lot of contempt for each other, but then eventually, they start dating, and then there's a lot of singing. And I thought it was a really, I don't want to give away the ending, but I thought it was really interesting that it's not necessarily the ending you would anticipate. And I think that makes it a more challenging movie than you'd necessarily expect. Like the first thing you see is a kind of a fantasy of everyone singing and dancing on the highway in LA where there's a ton of traffic and everyone gets out of their car and starts singing and dancing.
And it sort of explains, I guess, the thesis statement of the movie about how, like, LA's fucking terrible. We all have these dreams that we came out here for, and we're going to stick it out because, some of us will achieve these dreams, and then the next generation will see that we actually succeeded, and we'll give them hope to persevere,
Sure. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the thesis of the movie, but I like that. Pretend I said that. But it was an interesting movie. Like you said, Ryan Gosling, not really a singer. Emma Stone, a little bit better, but I wouldn't listen to a CD of her or anything. But
they were both good dancers.
They were both good dancers, and I think I think the amount of singing, it wasn't a particularly music heavy sort of musical. Like, I think there's only like 5 or 6 numbers in it. But anyway, I think it's really interesting. I think it's a genre of movie that is dying, musicals. And I think anytime we can have a good one, or even when we can have a shitty one, I think it's good for the genre. But I think this one is kind of really interesting, and it's also, I feel like, not too often you see a musical that's not based on, or a movie musical that's not based on a stage musical. So I think that's even more interesting.
Or I feel like nowadays we have so many jukebox musicals.
Well, sure.
Too. Yeah, so
but those are all, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It was nice that it was all original music. It was paying homage to the style of 50s musicals and 40s musicals at times, but it never felt retro,
No.
Like it was a very modern story, and
you definitely have some like references to Singing in the Rain, but it's definitely not aping it by any means.
Yeah.
And John Legend was like small part, but like I thought quite good.
Yeah.
But I also feel like if you're going to use John Legend, you need to have him sing more than just like one song.
Mm.
Oh, really? See, I thought like that was what was cool, was he does his nice big long song and it's awesome, and then they do like the rehearsal song, but like he's in 3 scenes and he sings in 2 of them.
I mean, I think he's in more than 3 scenes, but I
you would fight over this tiny lady.
But so John Legend, he is only there, and the problem is so one of the premises of the movie is that Ryan Gosling wants to save jazz or whatever, which it's a little bit ridiculous because he's also like a white dude trying to like save jazz by appealing to the like the older generation of jazz, and then the and then you've got this John Legend as a young black man who's like, no, we've got to do the new thing, and then the only time you really see John Legend singing is when he's singing this new jazz song that's like kind of meant to be the antithesis of what Ryan Gosling wants for his jazz career. Also, and I will say, I say this as someone who, started the movie saying, oh, I don't really like jazz, but, I think they do an admirable job of making jazz seem like a, it's done by the same guy who did Whiplash, which was also about jazz. And, so I feel like this guy's doing his part, trying to save this art form, but
yeah, I try to listen to jazz occasionally, but I don't think that I could listen to it in a movie. I mean, maybe it might just be that I don't listen to enough of this like classic or classical music. But I sometimes try to listen to it on the radio. It's just not my cup of tea. And
Mike and I.
This is gonna get.
What my friend Mike and I once went to an experimental jazz show, and I have to say it was the worst thing that's ever happened. There were as many people in the audience as there were people in the band, so you couldn't really leave.
Yeah, they were performing for 2 people, so it's like, all right, well.
No. There were like 5 people in the audience, but it was like this fully lit bar, and I was like, we can't leave.
Yeah.
We have to stay for the whole show. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing that ever happened. But jazz is definitely one of those things that I'm like, I bet I would have liked this if I was born in the 1920s.
So, as someone that doesn't know a lot about jazz, but I like Coltrane, this is going to get super Chicago specific, but the HD2 station for, I believe it's 101, the rock station, is a jazz station with hardly any commercials, and they play some pretty avant-garde stuff, and it's all it's all classic, all 1940s, 50s, 30s, and that's just great to have on in the background. So that's the thing is I more use jazz the same way I use movie scores as background music, but that's why I actually think I liked it in this. Is that someone that doesn't know a lot about it? Half of it is Gosling talking about trying to explain to you why jazz is awesome.
Yeah.
And the other half,
thank you, Ryan, for explaining this to me.
Yeah, and then the other half is jazz more as background music, because none of the musical numbers really are jazz. He plays this one, solo piece on the piano, but none of the vocal musical numbers are jazz, really, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So that's what I thought was cool. Is it was a cool blend of a lot of different sort of styles of music that were popular in the 40s and 50s. Broadway musical styles and jazz musical styles. So that anyway, it did a lot to make me like traditional musicals, which other than Singing in the Rain is something I'm not always very tolerant of. I tend to prefer musicals if the music is aping a non-traditional musical genre. And also Ryan Gosling looks super fucking sexy with his hair spilling over the top of his face while he's playing the piano, like every piano player in the in movies. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Going back to the fact that this was a musical, I don't get into musicals, but I really want to see more of them. It's just I find that most of them are more female oriented and really targeting females, and I don't know if it's just men don't sing as much as women do, or it's not targeted towards men. But I just want to see something more intense. An intense musical that really grabs my attention, but
we're gonna go see Hamilton in March, so we'll report back.
Awesome. Yeah, because the last musical that I really had hopes for was what was it?
I can get Harrison Ford to star in a musical.
The director of Low, Travis Betts, with Sarah Lasses, The Dead Inside, was a music, like a horror musical. That
is not a genre.
Right, because you don't really see that a lot. Not along the lines of the Patrick Michael Harris.
What's that? Repo the Genetic Opera?
Right, not along that line, because I just found that movie to be very bad. The Dead Inside was a little bit more closer to what the musical that I'm looking for, but just didn't hit as much.
Yeah. So would you recommend that, though? Because I've never heard of that. It sounds fucking crazy.
I wouldn't recommend The Dead Inside, but I would recommend Low, which is one of my top horror movies of all time.
Okay. So let's pop back over Gorehound. You had some more, right?
I have one more legit one. Deadpool.
Oh, good. I'm glad someone brought that up. Yeah.
Honestly, it may be a comic book movie, but it was so good. Deadpool is one of my favorite characters, and it really brought him to the screen in a way that I felt did justice to his character. Yes, it was a big budget Marvel movie, and yes, they played around with it. I thought it could have been a little bit more independent, but for it being a comic book movie, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. And I guess they really had to fight. Like, Gosling took a huge pay cut, and it was like the studio at every turn was like, what if you made this more of a conventional movie? Like, at one point they made them re-edit the whole thing to be in chronological order, because they're like, why do you keep cutting back to this big fight scene on the freeway? And they're like, well, you see, we can only afford to film like 2 fight scenes, so we need to use the one on the freeway as like the hook to keep people interested. And the studio's like, that's stupid. People aren't going to get that. They're going to wonder why you keep fighting the same people on the freeway. And they're like, So I think we're lucky we got it as subversive as we got it. I think I'm hoping now that they're bringing in cable, and now that like this was such a hit that they're going to let him do that, like whatever the hell they want in the sequel, that we'll get something a little more unhinged and like even more of him talking to the audience and that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was fantastic. And it really brought a lot of people to appreciate Deadpool for the type of character that he is. Because even the Graveyard Queen really liked it. I think might have been because it had Ryan Reynolds in it, which I think really opened the door for a lot of women who, you know, it's a Spider-Man movie, and this was what really helped them out into this.
Yeah, well, they even make fun of that.
Okay, I'm going to add the counterpoint as a woman. I think that Ryan Reynolds is good looking, and then they made him ugly, and I did not approve.
Yeah. But I honestly didn't think that he was all that ugly with his burnt face. I mean, he was still pretty attractive.
Again, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Would not have sex with him.
Oh no, you would trust me.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I'll have to tweet him later.
Jen, what did you think of Deadpool?
I mean, I very much enjoyed Deadpool. I think it got a little bit more love than I would have given it. Like, I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread or anything. But it was a lot of fun, definitely.
And that might be because I've been reading the comic books for a long time, and I've
read 0 comic books.
So I've been looking forward to it for a long time, and it lived up to it, which elevates it very high. Because like there's that Tooth Fairy movie that came out.
I remember that.
I was looking forward to that movie for 3 years before it came out.
Wait. Isn't the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson Tooth Fairy movie?
No, the Darkness Falls.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
Because it was a horror movie about the Tooth Fairy. And I don't know. I like these traditional icons that were being remade into horror movies. And that fell flat. It was so bad. And it really disappointed me for, like, maybe I shouldn't be looking forward to movies. And this one, like really restored my faith that I can look forward to movies still. Because sometimes they may live up to my expectations.
You ever watch, speaking of the Tooth Fairy, Hogfather?
No.
It's too damn long because it's based on a Terry Pratchett book, and they made it for like I guess sort of the equivalent of HBO in England, so they had lots of time to fill, so it's like 5 hours long or something redonkulous, but it's pretty fun. It's about like this contract killer in this like mythical land is like hired to kill their version of Santa Claus, who's called the Hogfather. So in order to, or maybe that was like every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so the way he does it is he goes and like invades the Tooth Fairy's house to like lure Santa Claus out of hiding.
Yeah. I'll check it out.
None of that sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's too damn long, unfortunately. But like it's one of those things I like watched the last 2 hours one time, and then went back and finally watched the first 2 hours, and I was like, this is pretty legit. Like, and then Death takes over as Santa Claus because he feels bad that kids aren't getting their presents.
Thor, you have anything next on your list?
Yeah. So I wanted to. This is a big commercial movie, but I definitely wanted to mention it because it blew me away. I didn't think it possibly lived up to my expectations, but I think it had the best fight choreography of like any to me it did 4 fight scenes what Mad Max did for car destruction last year. Captain America: Civil War. Yeah. So cool. Like, people are complaining about it still lacked like a strong villain, but I thought that was the point, was that it was just him turning these people against each other, and the villain was more of a, more of just this like Machiavellian presence. And Oh my god! So the fight scene where Scarlett Johansson, Iron Man without his suit, and Van Camp all get to go up against the Winter Soldier, I just thought was genius because like you actually want the Winter Soldier to escape, but like all of these characters are doing their job, and normally if you have a fight scene between characters you all like, it's kind of weird, but with this I felt like you were at each moment you were like compelled. Okay, who do I want to see get on top, and like, oh man, this is an amazing piece of choreography from this person, so maybe they deserve to win just based on being the better fighter. And then I mentioned that when Thor's Hour of Thunder reviewed it, but the second unit directors are fight choreographers, and I thought that was genius, and I thought that's why this movie looked so good. And just I feel like you rarely get to see in the age of like shaky cam and like a lot of just like cheap shorthand for fighting, you really get to see this amazing, like the scene where they're just wailing on Tony Stark with that shield. I didn't think I could live up to how epic it was in the trailer, and it was even better in person, like for the full movie.
Yeah, I saw it, and I didn't enjoy it that much as like one of the best movies of the year. It was fun, but I think I kind of just thought of it as just like another Marvel comic book movie cash in. I do admit that I was excited that they introduced the Black Panther into that.
Yeah.
And
you played that was amazing. The costume for that looked so cool.
Yeah, and it has me really looking forward to the next one in it. But yeah, the storyline with the Civil War is really good, and it makes you think about which side am I on, because both are legit sides.
Yeah. And I thought that's what was cool was they didn't, they give you reasons to be sympathetic to both parties.
I really wish that they had brought the She-Hulk into this as a lawyer. I would have been like, come on, be a lawyer between the two. But no.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Like, I want the Winter Soldier to go away. So, like, when they were fighting him, I was like, "Yeah, punch him in the face, punch him harder, punch him harder."
Yeah. You're not a fan of him?
No, I don't know what it is about Sebastian Stan. I just want to hit him in the face.
Wait, even when he's like in his like 1940s garb, or only when he's wearing the stupid emo hair?
No, I mean, well, part of it is I want him to wash his hair. I feel the same way about Loki. I'm not sure why these movies can't afford shampoo, but like,
well, Loki doesn't give a shit. He's a guy.
Yeah, and Loki rocks it.
Like, but then, I mean, that's fine. But like, also, I have to look at you for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, there are ways to show you don't give a shit, but also like wash your hair first. But like, I don't know.
If Tom Hiddleston showed up here after like a week of not bathing or shaving, we would be fighting each other for who got to blow him first.
What? No, I think here's what I'm going to say. First of all, that you guys are making way too many assertions about who I'm willing to have sex with. And second of all, like, I don't know what it is about Tom Hiddleston. He's another one I just kind of want to hit in the face. There's just certain people I want to hit in the face.
Have you seen his carpool karaoke?
No.
You legitimately say that he is an attractive man, right? Tom Hiddleston?
When he's not done up as Loki, I think he's an attractive man.
Okay, at least we can agree on that.
Yeah, no, I agree that he is an attractive man. I don't necessarily feel that he, that I care about his. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, I care about Loki as a person, but I want him to wash his hair. I think that is a reasonable request. But I also want the Winter Soldier to like go away. So at the end of the movie, when they like put him in a box or whatever, I was like, yeah. Congratulations, we're finally getting it right, and I'm hoping we're just gonna leave him there for like the rest of the series.
So no, honestly, I just, if you don't mind, Gorehound, I want to poke a little at this because I didn't know. So what, you think he doesn't add anything to the stories?
I don't know. Like I'd rather see Captain America hang out with
Falcon.
The Falcon, and I think they've created an interesting world, and I think like the best friend that he's whatever. Like I don't know. I don't find their relationship compelling, and I don't know if it's because I think that the character isn't that good, or if it's because I don't read the comic books, because like whatever.
I don't care much for the Winter Soldier either. I understand that he really adds to the story because he has a relationship with Captain America. He's he's a superhero, but. And
right, it's a character I should feel more about, because I feel like the I feel like, yeah, if you're going to have the best friend, like that usually means something. But I guess, and there's also part of me that feels cheated that we're not getting more, Agent Carter, more Peggy Carter. Like if you're going to bring somebody back from the past. But I guess I kind of feel like the whole thing's a little bit too neat. Like, okay, Captain America gets frozen for 70 years, but then his best friend also turns out to still exist. And I just I don't know.
And that's something that
sort of eye-rolly for me.
When that happened in the comics, that was before comics were written for adults, So
sure.
It's something where everyone's kind of grown to accept it. It's like when like as much as I love Aquaman, when I try and read like old 60s Aquaman, it's like you can tell this is written for kids. And like when they try and have something melodramatic happen, like, I trapped your child in a bubble of air because he can't breathe air and now he's dead, dickhead. And like they've redone that so many times because the initial one, you look at it and it looks like...
Didn't you tell me that in the 90s, Aquaman's parents were like dolphins?
Yes.
Okay, we don't need to go any farther on that. I just want to clarify that like Aquaman got super serious in the 90s or whatever.
He got super serious in the 90s, but he was still raised by dolphins. That was the right idea, because that was a more serious origin story than the origin story that he'd had originally.
Who hasn't been raised by dolphins, like...
And then that leads to my favorite ever Aquaman story arc is when this like crazy Japanese like supervillain whaler kills Aquaman's dolphin mom. So Aquaman steals Martian Manhunter's spaceship and goes to Tokyo and is just gonna like blow up the entire building of the whaler's headquarters until they found out. They're like, well, we do kill whales, but that whaler was not acting on our wishes. That makes everything okay, so he doesn't blow up their building.
You were telling me about this like 3 days ago. I do not remember why.
What you're saying is, can I please never tell you about this again?
Like, I was driving home from work, and I was on the phone with you, and you were telling this story, and like, at the time, I think it made sense in context, but now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, why did you tell me that story, and why didn't I hang up on you? Like, I could have just pretended my cell phone cut out. So anyway, so to go back, I did like Captain America, despite the existence of Bucky. Yeah. I did, Sebastian Stan. I did like the movie. I don't think I put it on my top 10 for the year, but I thought it was probably I think for whatever reason, the Captain America ones rise above the rest of them.
Yeah. Winter Soldier, the movie, I really liked too. I want to mention one more, and then I'll cut myself off. Actually, let me really quickly just go through ones that had enough flaws that I wouldn't really put them on a top 10.
Honorable mentions.
Okay, so the new Ghostbusters movie, I'm so happy they made it. The Bill Murray cameo stopped it dead in its tracks. But that was probably, that's one of the things that, like, especially, like, I feel like it's impossible to distance it from all the internet backlash and be like, like, this movie is going to be so much better than it ever is going to get credit for, So I do want to mention that. Hail Caesar, some of the musical numbers went on a little too long for me, but overall it was super fun. Josh Brolin was perfectly cast. And then also wanted to mention is definitely the worst movie that any of us will include on their list, but I fucking ate up every moment of Independence Day resurgence. It's probably one of the worst movies that was in theaters this year, but I fucking loved every second, and as soon as it's on Netflix, that's going to be the movie I just, like, put on for 30 minutes to fall asleep to.
You may have been the only one in America who saw that movie.
No, I saw it, but I agree with the rest of America.
The part where Bill Pullman's all, like, addled out of his mind, and he goes over and he's like, guys, I was going to try and make a big speech, but my brain's all messed up, so let's just go punch some aliens. I don't know. That was great. Oh, my God. He honestly, if that movie had been a piece of shit, he should have gotten fucking awards contention for, like, his portrayal of a man with, like, that many, like, literally, like, alien codes going on in his brain. Like, he was so much better than that
is material. Not an Oscar category, just so you know.
Well, that's why I watch the science fiction and fantasy awards instead. I'm just kidding; those aren't on TV. I read the live stream as they win.
I was about to say, I see lots of award shows that's not on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last one, I just wanted to touch on, not a movie, but something I really liked in 2016 was, and I've mentioned this before, but NBC has put out a limited 13-episode series. They're in 9 episodes so far, called The Good Place.
Oh, this is not going to continue. This has a beginning, middle, and an end?
I haven't heard anything about the show getting renewed, but that doesn't necessarily mean it won't.
I've never heard of this movie. Or this series.
I brought it up on the podcast before. It's about Eleanor Shellstrop, who is played by
Kristen Bell,
and she dies and goes to this sort of like crazy heaven called The Good Place that's being run by
Ted Danson.
And
I remember you talking about this, yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting premise, and I think, NBC has kind of taken their comedy brand. Like, they had, I think, regardless of what you thought of the shows, I think they were, undisputable comedy kings there for a while with their Thursday night lineup, and then they got rid of all the...
and we're talking about, like, 30 Rock, and we're talking about the
30 Rock, and we're talking about Friends, and we're talking about, for like 25 years or something, their Thursday night block was, all comedies, all, kind of original stuff. And, I think they did really well to build a brand there. And then they've kind of exploded that in the past few years. Once they canceled Parks and Rec, I think was kind of the end for them.
They need to put a show that's set in Chicago every single night of the week.
That's true. So right now they have a lot of, Chicago themed shows.
I don't watch any of them, but they put a lot of production here, so please keep going.
Yeah.
That's everyone around, anyone who does production here has been saying. They're like, hey, 5th series, guys, Chicago Streets and Sanitation, surefire hit.
If one of our 40 regular listeners is a producer, please help us out.
Perfect. But, so they've kind of blown up their comedy brand in the past few years. They haven't had as many on. So they're starting to get back into it. This show pairs with the TV show Superstore, which is a look at retail workers at a fictional Walmart
which had
place.
The worst commercials I'd ever seen, it's shockingly funny.
It's very good, and
it's from one of the guys behind Parks and Rec, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Yes. No. I'm sorry. That they are behind The Good Place.
Oh,
are also behind Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec. And so anyway,
it's from one of the writers. I'm sorry, it's another one of the favorite shows. It's from one of the not to totally sidetrack, but Superstore is from one of the writers of King of the Hill.
Okay, not sure what that had to do with anything, but thank you. But anyway, so The Good Place, I think it's a really fascinating premise. I really like that they're putting kind of a high concept TV show on at all, like where it's, first of all, I'm always a big fan when they come out with limited series because I have the attention span of a small child. So anytime they come out with something and they're not just kind of artificially inflating it to 22 episodes, I'm pleased. But I think it's such an interesting premise for a comedy show. I don't know if it's going to get renewed or if they're going to, how it will do as something, if you could have it go for several years. But I think there's such potential. I think people love thinking about, kind of potential afterlives and what that could be like. And I think there's a lot of different ways they could spin a second season of it. So anyway, it's doing okay in the ratings. But if we could get our 40 listeners to all watch the show, and then each of those people could make 1,000 additional people watch the show.
and buy an item from every commercial.
And buy an item from every commercial while telling those people that they are supporting the show.
Yeah.
Not to get too inside baseball, but if you if you really want to, vote with your wallet that a show can be renewed, just buy the season pass on iTunes or Amazon. It's like $2 an episode. That's what I'll do if it's something that I, since I never watch TV live and we ditched our, cable package because I didn't feel the need to spend $100 a month to have a DVR when we can, when I can buy it for $2 on Amazon.
Amen.
Sure, but so anyway,
because they do keep track of that.
All right.
Trying to decide whether or not to renew stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So anyway, But yeah, so I think it's a really interesting premise, and I think TV, like I don't want to say it, but I think TV is becoming the new movies in terms of
Oh, certainly.
things,
I mean,
things
that's
that
all
are
that Netflix does now.
things that are making money and things that are keeping the interest of people, and so anyway,
and it's much more buzzed about. You get so much more of people
right.
on Facebook and stuff talking about how excited they are about, both before it comes out and after it comes out. But yeah,
Sure.
I feel like I see a lot less other than like the biggest tentpole movies.
So I think if we can get more of these things going, if we can get more high concept comedies, I'll be happy. And so anyway, everyone should check it out and then get 1,000 of their closest friends to also watch it.
Do you want me to rattle off a bunch more really boring statistics about how they look at consumer behavior?
Oh, please don't.
Because I can tell that was like your favorite part. Of this is me interrupting you with like really dry statistician.
No. Gorehound, do you have one last one?
Right? I kind of do. The Lobster.
Yes, I'm glad someone mentioned that.
Yeah, and this is just a mention. Because I'm not sure if it's one of my favorite movies or one of the best movies of the year. I just watched it because as I was doing research for this, it was on like everybody's top 10 list. So I was like, and it was on Amazon, so I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
It was super weird. What was your guys' thoughts on it?
Okay, so we watched this on a date, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, not a date movie.
So this one I'll own up to. We were trying to decide between The Lobster and The Meddler. And the only thing I'd seen from The Lobster was the trailer, which was really, really funny. The trailer had all the best comedy moments. It only shows the stuff in like the first third where it's them in the hotel, which is far and away the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
And so like The Meddler, I hadn't heard anything about. And when I haven't heard about a movie, but it gets good reviews, I'm like, okay, cool. So I read the first sentence of the Ebert review, or the review on Ebert's website, rather, obviously. And he... and the author said that it was, this like amazing, profound movie, and like even though that's the title, The Meddler, don't let that put you off. And I was like, oh, this sounds like it's going to be pretty serious. I don't know much about this, but like I said when we were going into it, I assumed it was going to be a lot more serious because Susan Sarandon, Rose Byrne, J.K. Simmons. But so I was like, let's see The Lobster, movie for something lighter. So we watched like the first third, and it's dark comedy but very funny. Mm-hmm. And then so spoiler alert, around the time that someone kicks his brother who's a dog to death, I was like, oh, this is not the movie I expected it was going to be. And then
well, I didn't find that to be as intense as it was supposed to be, because the entire movie is so, I felt like it was just like trying to stay baseline, like nothing is too exciting but still very good. It was so weird. I felt it to be like a Wes Anderson film with like a different director. Right.
Yeah. I think it was like if Wes Anderson wrote a script and handed it to Stanley Kubrick, and then like he let Ralph Bakshi do the production design.
Here's what I thought of The Lobster. I thought the first like half or so, the hotel stuff was, I thought that was some really interesting world building. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I really like in movies. I like dialogue, I like high concept, I like world building. Like I thought, this is a really interesting, like once you kind of accept the premise, I think a lot of stuff is really interesting there. I think the second half of the movie kind of goes off the rails.
Yeah, and I think that they meter out like, oh, this isn't like something he went to try and get a mate, this is something that's government mandated. I like how that is slowly metered out. But
yeah, I was confused about why he was actually there, because I thought that he went there voluntarily. But then I was like, maybe he wasn't, but it wasn't that clear to me why he was there.
Yeah. So that's what I like, because I think eventually you realize that this is, you have, like, when they go back to the city and you have to be in couples or you get arrested. So, that was what I thought.
Okay, I follow that.
Yeah. So that was what I thought was cool, was, they did it subtly. Like, I think I had to read afterward to get some of these points, but I liked all that, but then I felt like when they have, like, they have, like, this sort of, like, because obviously people aren't going to be explaining the rules to each other because they sort of know this world that they live in. So the part the part that to me lost me was I thought that the people, the singles, like was trying to show sort of, I guess, the two sides of a coin, that like if you decide that like autonomy is the only way, that's just as fascist, but it didn't work for me. Like when they're having like, oh yeah, these people were caught kissing, so we like mutilated their mouths and stuff. Like that went from like the sort of like dark comedy of the rest of the movie to like it was just grotesque, and like I didn't like when so more spoilers, when like the main woman of those like singles who live off in the woods, when she like just puts her friend who's like never always just done whatever the hell she tells her to, just puts her in front of her to like get stabbed by Rachel Weisz. Like I was just like, so is the message of this that everyone's terrible? And then we get to the end with like and I loved the whole idea that like everyone has to have some superficial thing that they're physically similar about for it to be love, so at the end he decides like which we were talking about was so stupid that there were so many other things they could have done to like be like, oh well, our defining characteristic is whatever, like is that we both have one pinky finger missing, like you could have just done stupid shit like that if you had a physical characteristic, and then
oh my god, don't even talk about the
ending. So the end,
like,
I liked the end a lot. Jen can't even discuss it. I thought the part with the dog was the part that got me more, but like I thought that was a really cool ending. You said that you'd seen Dogtooth, which I had no idea. This was from this guy when we saw it.
Right. So
what do you think happened at the end? Do you want to give your thoughts?
I think he. Right. So I think he chickens out.
Yeah.
Because she's waiting there for a little too long.
Because she's waiting there for him, and because I cannot live in a world where he does not chicken out. I hope he chickens out.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing.
So what do you think? Why does he? And what does he do instead?
I think he lies to her and tells her he's blinded himself, and he has not blinded himself.
Oh.
Interesting.
I think he lies to her. I think
that's logical. Yeah.
I think it's kind of one of those things. I think there's certain things in a relationship. I don't think there's the one. I think you round somebody up to the one, and you have your 0.64 or whatever, and then you round them up to the one. And I think there's certain in a relationship, there are certain little lies we tell each other, and that. Not
me.
Okay, well, not you. That's true, but I think most people in relationships. Allow certain, lies like, oh, did you think she's prettier than me? No, of course not. Like that kind of thing, and most of them are harmless, and most of them are kind of, you kind of have the right not to know what someone's thinking. And I think, but I think in a world that demands this kind of like obedience, I think he's got to kind of have his own way of like striking out against that. I think he's got to, on some level he realizes that this is ridiculous. And he's, I think he chickens out. I think he kind of has to, because he realizes how insane everything is.
I thought the ending came like way too abruptly, and I don't mind having an open-ended ending, but that one really, because the entire pace of the movie is going, nothing is really getting more intense.
Yeah, but it was a lot of the like meandering, that like weird dialogue, which was genius.
Yeah, I love the dialogue, and that I think is what is making this one of my top movies of the year. Is the script? It was so quirky, but it got the point across. Like I don't have to know what you're thinking.
It felt very good in terms of world building. I really enjoyed all of that. So I've seen Dogtooth, which was nominated for a foreign language Oscar like 5 years ago or something. Features significantly more incest than I wanted. Mm-hmm. But was another one where it was kind of like, okay, you've come up with this really interesting premise, and I don't necessarily feel like I think you've followed through enough on it.
Yeah. So you think this guy needs a co-writer, sort of?
I think I need to be the co-writer, and I need to fix some of his worst impulses.
Dude,
so like foreign guys, if you want to get
so weird.
It is. It is so weird.
Like it is so weird. There's no way I'm watching this movie.
I think that's fair. And that one is also subtitled. And again, significantly more incest than I was necessarily willing to deal with.
the one time the thread, which yet again, like you guys are saying, nothing builds. Like the problem with the lobster is it has a lot of interesting threads, and I think he
Doesn't really follow through.
He should have like picked one and ran with it, and then the other two he could have like written short stories and like released something that like came with the movie to like here's other stuff about that world that I decided not to make because it would have distracted from the awesome like run the logical follow through, which is more stuff in the hotel, and when they go back to the hotel and you think they're just gonna like massacre people, and instead they like tell them all the nasty shit, like they're like we need you to kill your wife, and the guy's like perfectly willing to do it, like, and then he goes back and just tells the girl with the nosebleeds that what's his name, Q from James Bond is just like hitting his head against the sink, and he's like, it's probably not even blood on him right now, that's ketchup or something like that. I'm sorry, that was the worst Irish accent in the history of time.
You got the point across. But I guess the only reason I brought it up was because everybody was saying it was so good, and it was good. I felt like it really dropped for me once Colin Farrell started hanging out with the girl.
The crazy sociopath life.
Yeah. Right. And when they were doing all the body language, I thought that got like way too Wes Anderson, and it wasn't part of the world that they.
You mean when he actually meets not the like sociopath girl, when he actually meets Rachel Weisz?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the last, I was like, 30%.
Oh my god, this is so cool that the narrator is now becoming a character. But yeah, it was kind of a wasted opportunity because you're right, it becomes a little too twee and rom-com-y, contrasted by like some of the darkest fucking shit in the movie.
Right. But because a lot of the other stuff that we're seeing, like, okay, I can buy that. But, like the sign language type thing is just like, let's move on from there. And they kept on with it.
Remember, they did this entire thing, and then once he's blind, he starts doing the sign language to her, which serves no.
Wait, who's blind?
Once she gets blind,
okay.
He starts saying it. He goes, "Move hand to left, move hand to right," to like explain what the plan is, so that the audience doesn't know. Which was a very, just like you said, Wes Anderson, just very like quirky dialogue for the sake of quirky dialogue, because there's no reason for him to explain it that way other than to leave us in dramatic suspense. There's no reason he wouldn't just say there's no one around them, and they've already talked about their plan to go out to the city. And so the one time I thought that worked as like just, so I'd say that's like somewhere between like Wes Anderson and like sort of like 70s SNL alum movies where it was like just straight up like dumb jokes, like they were funny but they were way too stupid for how clever the rest of this movie was. But the one time I totally laughed at one of those dumb jokes was when she's sitting there blind, looking at the sunset, and she's trying to convince him she can still see. And it was so stupid. And he like hands her something, and she guesses totally wrong. She's like, "Oh, what a lovely water bottle." And he's like, "It's a sandwich." And she's like, "Oh, of course." It was just like so. Yeah, it seemed like it was part of a different movie, but like I totally will admit I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, it's definitely an interesting movie. I'm glad I saw it.
I was surprised to see it on. It's in like Rotten Tomatoes, like top 50, like not just top 100. So. And I think yeah, that's the difference. Is when we look at something, especially since we saw those one after the other, and they had drastically different tones than what I was anticipating. When we look at that versus The Meddler, which I think is just such a fully realized movie. And is just like so sweet while still having really realistic characters, making hard choices and going through grief and going through very realistic, very full lives that aren't easy. I think that's a movie that's getting ignored because it seems, I guess, too like nice or too like mom friendly when it's not. Like you can make a good movie without like terrible, weird, depressing stuff in it. Like
you can definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's something that like critics especially forget, and I think that's something too when you see like critics scoff at something like Slumdog Millionaire winning Best Picture is like, yeah, it's like over the top and a fable, but like it's okay to not feel like shit at the end of a movie and still have it win awards. Like,
I'll be honest, I never finished that movie because of the scene where the kid is literally covered in shit, and I was like, It's like 4 minutes into the movie, and it's just like, nope,
And that's played for laughs too.
done with that.
That's a comedy scene.
There's an amount of shit I want in my movies, and that amount is zero shit.
Oh, well, sorry, we ran a little long.
All right. You have any closing thoughts? I don't.
Closing thoughts. Good riddance, 2016. You've been awful. I don't think I'm saying anything original here, but I will say, 2016 has been terrible. I hope someone is watching over Betty White, and knock on wood, nothing bad will happen for the next. I mean, can we make it 3 days?
All right.
So.
Well, next episode we'll be looking forward to 2017. And hopefully the punk ass Nick will join us again. So.
Oh gosh, unless he's the next celebrity to die.
But my final thought is that it's such a dumb joke in The Lobster, but it's one of the ones that I think it pulls off, which is, hey, when we don't make it, John C. Reilly talking with a speech impediment, when we don't make it, I want to become a parrot. Why don't you two become parrots with me? And then the cue from James Bond goes, you want to become a parrot? You idiot? You realize you keep your personality. He goes, you would become the only species that your lisp would carry over into.
I'm not sure that's a closing thought on 2016, but it was a good joke.
Well, let's close this up. I am the Gorehound.
I'm Jen.
I'm Thor.
And we are the all-new Culture Cast. Catch you next week.
You've been listening to the all-new Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's Culturecast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The all-new Culture Cast, a saltwater production, copyright 2016.